All right. Good evening, everyone. And welcome to the library. Let's get myself on camera here. How are we doing this evening? 14, 15 people to start off with. I like it. As tonight we're going to talk about some Montana ghost stories. But I want to say hello to everyone first, of course, before I tell you why Lenny is wearing his fedora over there. No, it's not a fedora. What do you call it? I don't even know what you call it. Hello, Don McHugh, Delilah, Emmanuel Spataro, Todd Father in the house. Delilah is here. Gerard, good to see you, my friend. Sweet Tea is here. Who else is here? Arlene Marlino is here. Excellent. MPOW is here. Fancy Nancy in the house. Tammy Thompson. I'm sorry. I'm losing my eyesight here. Tammy Thompson. She's always here. Who else is here? George Cicelli. Good to see you. Let me keep going here. Surviving Together. Thank you for checking in. And who else is left here that I missed? I must have missed somebody. I always do. Unfortunately, but I do get back to them. Zelda. Osada Treats is here. Great to see you. Mustang Mike is here. All right. Thank you guys for joining. Surviving is awake. Harlow, how are you? All right. Thank you guys for joining. But let me start by lighting my candles because we always need candles. I got some new candles because I went through my entire box just with these stories. So let's see if these are any better. I don't know. I think they are. My backup candle off screen. Let's shut that off. There we go. I don't know what's going on here. There we go. That's better. So as you can see, Lenny's a bit ambitious. It's still February, but he's in the St. Patrick's Day spirit. So he's got his green top hat or bowl hat, I guess you call it, on. And we are going to have a St. Patrick's Day episode where I'm going to talk about some Irish ghost stories, which I think will be fun. And I'm going to do that on the 14th. So check that out. I'll put up a thumbnail very soon on that. But tonight, we're going to talk about Montana ghost stories. And I have 3 of them for you. So I hope you enjoy it. Hello, Edwin. Good to see you, my friend. And then I have a couple of paranormal. I have one paranormal video and a couple of paranormal pictures that I'll show you. Like I always say, it gets harder and harder to find one's worth even looking at or addressing. So I'll keep trying. All right, so let's start off with Montana. Montana, I've never been to this state, but it's a beautiful state, a huge state. Open plains and mountains, home of the Lakota tribe, the Blackfeet, what else? Some Cheyenne. And there was another predominant tribe there too, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. But anyway, but a beautiful state. I want to visit it sometime. Billings, Montana is the most notable part of that state. But anyway, but I got 3 stories for you, so I hope you enjoy them. So the first one is called The Legend of Sacrifice Cliff. Now, Sacrifice Cliff, and I will show you a picture of it, is a pretty big cliff over a river. Here we go. As you can see, there's a river here. It's not far from Billings. But here's the background to this. Excuse me, my throat, I got something in my throat before, and I keep trying to clear it, and it's not really working very well. So apologize for that. All right, so here's what it looks like. Now this cliff, and I got a couple of pictures of it actually. Let me show you another one. I want to make sure you get a good understanding of what this looks like. And then I'll get right into the story. The story is very short. It's not a very in-depth story, but it is something that I found interesting. Here's a different angle of it. And from this angle, you can see, let me put it on full screen. You could probably appreciate how high it is because down here is a building, right? So this is a pretty darn big cliff, pretty high cliff. And here's the river beneath it. And this picture is obviously taken in winter, so there's snow on the ground. But so that's what we're talking about. Now, the legend behind this goes back to just when the white man started to show up in this region. So the early 1800s. And as you may or may not know, Montana doesn't become a state until 1889. So it was a territory for quite a while. But this story is directly related to the Lakota Native American Indians that were there. The Sioux. The Lakota is a branch of the Sioux. I'm sure you've heard of the Sioux. So anyway, no, but actually the legend itself, however, is not about the Lakotas. Lakotas are the majority, the biggest Native American tribe there. But this one is about the Crow. That was the other tribe that I couldn't remember before, the Crow. So this legend is specifically about Crow. Now, it's said that the Crow tribe was a particular group of the Crow tribe was living in this area at the time that this origin legend comes from. And a couple of young braves were sent out on a hunt. And they took off. They were young. They were about to become full-time braves. They weren't old enough yet. They weren't experienced enough. So they were going out on a hunt, and they were going to prove themselves and come back as men. And it took them off into the wilderness, and they were there for many days. And when they finally achieved what they wanted to and come back with their winning their hunt, the result of their hunt, they found a horrible sight. They found that the tribe was completely wiped out. Their village was completely wiped out by a disease. And it turns out it was smallpox that completely wiped out their particular village. And they were so heartbroken because they also, and not only was this their family, there was also their loved ones. They were engaged to be married. They were set up with a marriage to happen when they returned, and they were dead as well. The girls were dead as well that they were going to marry. So they were so devastated by this that they decided to make a suicide pact. And the two of them took their horses up to the top of Suicide Cliff. They blindfolded the horses so that the horses would not hesitate. And they ran and galloped over the cliff, screaming to their deaths as they end there into the river below. Now, this is said to have happened in the early 1800s. And it has resonated over the years as part of the tribal history and the general lore of the area. So what's the ghost part of this? Well, it is said that as a result of this, the spirits of these two Crow tribe braves are said to haunt this region and seem to be more of a residual haunting than anything else, that they seem to be reliving their fate over and over again. And it is said that on very, very dark nights, some people have claimed to have heard the cries on the wind of them going over the cliff, the war cries or the cries to the Great Spirit that they were soon going to meet their family and their fellow tribesmen. And even the whinny of the horses as they went over the cliff are heard on the wind. And some people say on a dark night, they will even hear the splashes of the two horses with the men on it hitting the water. So that's a pretty creepy thing to experience if you're out there in the middle of the night and you hear these sounds out of nowhere, the whooping howls of braves that have committed themselves to ending their lives. So just a creepy and macabre story that has resonated over the years. And to this day, people still have sightings of the two braves from time to time, either on top of the cliffs or, like I said, splashing into the water below. So quite an impactful story to resonate over the years, that these poor braves were so devastated by the loss of their family and friends and loved ones and future wives that they took their own. And unfortunately, are destined to repeat this over and over again for I don't know how long. So anyway, that's the story of Sacrifice Cliff, the two Crow Braves that were so grief-stricken that they took their own lives by galloping over the side of the cliff. So that's the one. That's the first story. All right, Sacrifice Cliff. Let me get rid of this so we can move on. Let me see. Did anyone come in that I did not say hello to? I want to make sure I say hello to them. I think I saw someone come in. Bobo, good to see you, my friend. Muggsy, Siegel, good to see you. Thank you for coming in. Thank you, guys. Yes, it's definitely a sad story, Zelda. And a lot of these stories are, right? A lot of these legends come from sad trauma, much like this. And you would think that such a horrible experience would lend to these type of extra life activities, paranormal activities, because of such the trauma that they experience, that it resonates over and over and over again. Tony the Night Owl, good to see you. Well, here's the thing about that, Tony, is that the Crow and many of the Plains Indians were so connected to their horses that they were considered an extension of themselves. They wouldn't leave the horses. So if they're going to go, they're taking the horse with them. They were one. They were one with their horses. Their horses were chosen when they became old enough, and they stayed with that horse until that horse either died or something else happened. So there was a very deep connection to it between the horse and the brave, and that's why they were such vehement fighters and such successful fighters, is because they had this relationship with the horse. They're said to be probably the best light cavalry of the time was the Sioux and the Plains Indians. So that's probably why. I don't think it was something unnecessarily, to target the horses or anything like that. They just didn't think of it that way. They thought of it as, we're one spirit together. Us, me and my horse are one spirit, and if I'm going to end it, we're going to end it together, type of thing. So anyway, that's just my little bit of tidbit there on that issue. Because yeah, I know no one wants to hear about animals being harmed. All right, so that's the sacrifice. All right, now let's go on to number 2. Now, number 2 story is the territorial prison of Montana. Now, we all know that prisons tend to be haunted, right? Especially when they're abandoned, or if they're amount of time because of there's such suffering that occurred there. Well, there was an awful lot of suffering that took place in the Montana Territorial Prison. It was built in 1871 while it was still a territory. That's why it was called the Territorial Prison before it became a state. And it maintained, and as through statehood. In fact, it was an active prison until 1979, in which time it was closed. And it's been closed since then. Right now, it's considered a historical site. It's on the historical registry, etc. But there have been numerous ghost hunting expeditions into this place because of all the sightings that have occurred over the years. So let me first show you what it looks like. And then we can get into a little bit more specifics about what you see there. All right. Here's one picture of what it looks like. Kind of looks like a castle. It's, and you could see the fencing on the top here, but made of stone and very medieval looking, I guess is the proper term, because it looks like a fortress. Not what you would consider a modern prison at all. All right. There's one picture. I think I have another one in here somewhere. Okay, I have this picture right here. Now, this was in a reenactment since it's been closed. This is a reenactment. Now, take a look at right in the center here. There's an orb captured in here. These are actors pretending to be prisoners. They had some type of reenactment and they were taking pictures at the time, and this was captured. This orb was captured directly centered of the picture here. So, I looked for any more distinct ghostly pictures. I couldn't find any. This was the best I could do, but it is definitely an orb. So could be, could be a spirit caught there. All right. But you get the gist of it. This is the prison. And now what goes on in this prison is really the question, right? What makes it haunted, or what things have led people to believe it's haunted? Well, after it was built in 1871, within a year's time, it was completely filled up and overcrowded. And that overcrowded nature of the place never changed really up until the 70s. That it exceeded its capacity, it was overcrowded, and it became very violent. Prisoners would be starving, not especially in the 1800s and the early 1900s. There was a lack of food given to them, a lack of attention given to them, and they became very violent and would kill each other. Some would take their own lives. So it's an awful place, like just a lot of negative energy here from all of the suffering that went on in this place. There was actually a prison riot in the 1950s where the prisoners actually took over the whole place and captured some of the guards there, etc. So it was a pretty bad place, and therefore you can understand why there might be negative spirits hanging around here. Now, some of the things people experience when they are in the prison: voices, they hear random voices out of nowhere. Usually lamenting voices like moaning or sighing, or in pain voices. They'll hear eerie sounds and footsteps coming out of nowhere. Some people say they are touched, and not in a pleasant way at all, pushed. They will actually feel that they're being pushed by some malevolent spirit, pushing them hard. There's an overwhelming sense of dread that some people get just by walking through the doors. They just feel very uncomfortable and feel they have to leave. And then some even feel a presence of like a force charging at them as if to violently attack them. So all very negative stuff. No positive ghosts here. Nothing, no helpful spirits like we've talked about on many times. Nothing like that. This is all a negative experience. And seems to go on to this day. And even though it's not an active prison, obviously, those that visit tend to encounter this on tours. The ghost hunters that go there describe this. They seem to be consistent in describing all the activity there. So who these ghosts are, who would know? There could have been so many souls that were lost in this prison over the years that there's no way to pinpoint who these tortured spirits might be, but it's clear that they're active and not in a good mood, not in a good spirit, for lack of a better word. So the Montana Territorial Prison, definitely a haunted site that is not the best place to be. All right. So let's get rid of this and let's move on to our final story, the big one, the big story. Now, ghosts of Little Bighorn. Now, hey, Slim, good to see you, my friend. So, Little Bighorn. This is obviously the battle that was the last stand of Custer. And I was surprised when I was talking about this morning on Todd Father's show that he and Stiggs didn't really know much about this at all. So I thought I'll provide a little bit more background. I always thought Custer was a popular type of icon in history. Like you would know who he is, and you'd know the Battle of Bighorn. But I guess some people don't. So anyway, the Battle of Bighorn is where Custer met his end, and it's traditionally known as Custer's Last Stand. Now, this took place on June 25th, 1876. Now, prior to this, Custer built quite a reputation for himself by attacking Native American Indian tribes and being very cruel with them, not being very accommodating. And he built up a reputation for this. And because of that, people thought he was invincible. And he thought he was invincible. I mean, anyone who knew him would say you wouldn't find someone with a bigger ego than George Armstrong Custer. And here's a misnomer. A lot of people say General Custer. He was not a general. He was a general in the Civil War. And if you know anything about the Civil War, because of the rapid turnover and the way there were so many lives lost and there were so many losing of officers and there were splitting of officers. Because remember, the Civil War is all Americans. So a good number of officers went to the South because that's where they were from and fought for the Confederacy. Whether they believed in slavery or not, they went where their home was. So a lot of people were promoted to positions of power quicker than normal. So he rose to a general's role in the Civil War. But after the Civil War, he was knocked back down to a colonel. So when he meets his end, he is a colonel. He's Colonel Custer. Now, his troops called him general because that's what he wanted, and that's what they thought of him as. They had such a high opinion of him. They thought he should be a general, so they always called him General Custer. And that's probably why that name or that title resonated well after his demise. So it's 1876. Custer has his battalion of 650 men, cavalry, which is pretty big. It's a pretty big detachment. But little does he know that he's going to encounter 3,000 Native American Indian tribesmen. And these 3,000 are a combination. They're not just one tribe. They're a combination of the Lakota, Sioux, and the Northern Cheyenne. So basically, you had a convergence that was called together by the famous Sitting Bull. You may recognize that, Sitting Bull, who called these warriors together to defend the Black Hills, because that was the issue here. The Black Hills were an area that in the original peace treaties were supposed to retain with the Indians. They were supposed to be holy ground, and we were not supposed to go into them. Well, what happens with Western expansion? Gold is discovered in the Black Hills, and what happens? It spreads like wildfire, and settlers begin to enter the Black Hills in search of gold. And this is obviously a violation of the treaty, which causes the Indians to go on the warpath. The government tries to take this back because of all the population heading there, trying to say, no, we're not going to honor the treaty. You guys can go on to a reservation. And Custer's job is to try to get them onto a reservation. Now, it's not an easy job, obviously. He's greatly outnumbered. And he, like I said, he made his reputation by fighting Indians when the odds were to his benefit, where he surprised them, where there were less warriors there. The warriors would be out someplace, and he would go to and attack the village. So he made his bones by basically following the art of war of Sun Tzu, in the sense that he would never fight unless the odds were for him. Well, here we go. He goes into meet his end where the odds are very much against him. 3,000 are waiting for him. And what he does, unfortunately, and there's a lot of controversy about exactly what happened during the battle that ended the way it did. But the bottom line is he splits his forces into threes, and this seems to be his end because two of his groups get bogged down by the river fighting tribes there, and he's left alone attacking the village, and that's where he meets the major force. And we all know what happens. He ends right there and will be there forever, so to speak. So let me show you some pictures real quick so you understand what I'm talking about here. You see, anyway, what I'm talking about. By the way, here's our man. There he is, George Armstrong Custer. And as you can see, he's in general attire there. He's got stars on his shoulders. He's in the general. This was during the Civil War, or towards the end of the Civil War. So this is the famous picture of him that we see. And it's a good likeness. It's a good rendition of him with his famous handlebar mustache and long hair hanging out. And remember this, because this is one of the main ghost stories is him himself. So remember this image, because this is what you will, part of this, one of the stories is all about, is seeing this. Hey, Cheech, how are you? All right, there's George for you. Now, let me go on and show you what we're talking about in terms of the battlefield, because the battlefield's important too, in the sense that a lot of this stuff happens on the battlefield. All right. Here's a good shot of Last Stand Hill, what they call it. And this is where Custer met his end. And as you can see, there are tombstones planted where the bodies lay or laid. And I'll tell you about the battle in a second, a little bit more about the battle itself and what happened there. But so in the battle itself, he's trapped on this hill right here, and he gets overwhelmed. Now, why does he get so overwhelmed? Well, obviously the numbers were against him. The other thing is that his men were equipped with I forgot the name of the rifle, but it was a single shot rifle. You had a load. At the same time, the tribes he was fighting were using repeaters, repeating, so the odds technologically, which traditionally were in favor of the American troops or the cavalry, were in the favor of the Indians in this case. They had the better weapons. And so basically he had no fighting chance. There's no way he could possibly win this battle. And in fact, the entire troop is wiped out. At least his entire regiment, where he was, his entire group was wiped out. And I believe it was 242 people that perished, 242 cavalrymen that died on that hill. And the interesting thing about this, too, and lends kind of to the ghostly side of this, is that the Indians thought Custer was supernatural. They thought he was more than a man. They believed he was an evil spirit in a man's body. And because of that, when he dies, they do not touch his body. Whereas many of the others and majority of the soldiers on this hill were mutilated. The Indians did not touch Custer's body. When the relief corps got there, his body was intact. It was not touched. He was shot and dead, left where he'd lie. And so many others were mutilated, but he was not. So his body was completely intact, and they saw exactly where he was at the time when he perished. So it's just an interesting fact about that, how the fear they had and of him because of all that he had done. They considered him a demon, basically, and they would not they would not play with him once he was gone. They would not play with the body. They were not going to play with the evil spirits that were believed to live within him. So Interesting tidbit about that whole concept. All right. So let's go to oh wait, no, I don't have to go to that. All right, let's go to the first story though. Now, there's been several ghost stories that go along with this. It all happened in Custer himself. His death was all in that day. All his men were with him were killed in that day on the hill. 242 were killed with him on that hill. The others that, excuse me, Major Reno and Major Benteen, I think, were the two other troop areas. They didn't die all at the same time, and were not completely wiped out. Because and that was part of the problem, is they didn't support Custer either. They got bogged down where they were. So I don't know if it would have changed the battle if they had joined Custer and came up when they should have. But they got bogged down by the river. They were outmatched. But it was 242 of his that were with Custer, 16 officers. So I guess a total of what does that turn out to be? 258, I guess, around that. And him. So 259. Hello, Shannon. Shannon, how are you? Good to see you. Bill C., good to see you too. All right, so let's talk about the ghosts. The first ghost is Custer himself. Now, there's several stories about Custer on this in and around this area. Now, one of them is in the visitor center itself. Now, the visitor center has a bunch of artifacts in there, guns, other things that were picked up from the battlefield and preserved. They're in the visitor center. So if you go there, you can visit it and see it. Now, many people have said that they have seen Custer materialize himself, and it's clearly him, because they look at him. I mean, they see that picture of what I showed you. Let me show it to you again while I'm talking about it. Hold on. Just so you make it's fresh in your mind here. So they see this, they see the signature handlebar mustache. They see the military uniform, but they also see, they don't see this specific uniform because they see the buckskin that he was traditionally known to wear. The ghost wears the buckskin that if you see pictures of Custer or artists' renditions of Custer during The Last Stand, you'll see him wearing a fringe, a buckskin fringe, which his signature thing, which he often wore. But in any regard, among the artifacts, they see a figure materialize, and this figure walks a few steps. It's in full uniform, handlebar mustache, etc. They'll describe a chill filling the room, and as if the heat is drawn out of it instantaneously when this figure appears. Custer's spirit himself will shake his head and they describe his face as being wide-eyed, as if fear had struck him, as if this was the last moments before he met his demise that you're seeing his spirit at the time when he lost his life. So, and then he'll take a few steps forward and then he'll vanish in front of you. So this is in the visitor center itself, and there's been numerous accounts, and it's the same account. It's the same thing they see. It comes from where the artifacts are. The spirit will materialize, step forward, shake his head, and look like this, and then vanish. So a creepy experience you could happen just by visiting the visitor center. You could encounter Custer's ghost as you do that. There was a specific account of a visiting professor who was going there to use and provide a lecture. Oftentimes they will have historical professors, history professors that will show up and will give lectures on the battle, other things like that. And this visiting professor had borrowed some of the artifacts. So he had taken them for his lecture. So he was done with his lecture and he was bringing them back into the visitor center, the visitor room where the artifacts are kept. And as he's moving that, he notices a man in full period military garb standing in the corner. Now, he doesn't think much of this because there's often reenactors there. So he assumes this is a reenactor. Now, this was not described as Custard. It's just described as a general soldier, like a regular soldier, much like a sergeant or a lieutenant or something like that. Standing in the corner, nods his head, sees the professor, nods at him as if, okay. So the professor thinks nothing of it and assumes it's just another reenactor, proceeds to put the artifacts back, turns back around. He sees the officer walk towards, the soldier walk towards the artifacts, which were in the different room where he had left them, and he had closed the door. He sees the soldier walk up and walk through the door as if to go and retain the artifacts or whatever once he's inside, but does not open the door, walks through the door. So quite an bone-chilling experience to see something like that. You think this is just a reenactor, and then suddenly it comes to your understanding that you've just seen a spirit walk in front of you or actually acknowledge you and nod to you and then walk past you. So a very chilling experience by a visiting professor. There is also an account by a Dr. Charles Coleman, also a professor, while out on the battlefield that I showed you before, claims that he was visited by Custer's ghost on the battlefield, that he appeared on Last Stand Hill while this professor was either digging for artifacts or taking measurements and stuff like that. For the longest time, they've tried to use scientific methods to determine exactly where people were when things happened, to try to reenact the battle as closely as possible. And that's what this professor, Dr. Charles Coleman, was doing. And he said that he saw the spirit of Custer appear before him on Last Stand Hill. So another creepy experience there. The fourth one is a report by a park ranger, a female park ranger by the name of Mardell Plainfeather. She was a Crow, ethnically a Crow tribe member. And she was there at the visitor center because she works there. One night she's there with her daughter and had to drive her daughter to the lodge. There's the visitor center, and then there's the lodge, and then there's a cemetery there. So it's quite a big operation there. It's a battlefield. It's a national park, national battlefield. And as she approaches the lodge, she drops her daughter off at the lodge. She looks up on the ridge. Now, as you could see from that picture before, it is hilly. It's very hilly over these plains. And she looks over the next ridge and sees in the distance on the next ridge 2 men on horseback staring at her. And their attire is dressed in full Native American garb, like with feather headdress, and a spear, and standing in the saddles, though, in their horses, standing in the saddles as if to see who she is. And then she looks away, blinks, and they are gone. They vanish before her very eyes. And it's not a situation where it could be someone who, within that time ran away, turned the horses and left. There's no way that could have happened that quickly. But they completely vanished before her very eyes. Now, in the cemetery next to the battlefield, where many soldiers as well as Indians are buried. There's many that buried there as well, because there were plenty of Sioux and Cheyenne casualties as well. So, there are a lot buried there as well. So, in the cemetery, it is said that they see shadows. People have seen shadows at dusk, shadows appearing as if they're men, crouching down and sprinting from here to there, to here to there. And it gives the appearance of those that might have been on Last Stand Hill trying to find cover once they got off their horses, sprinting over here, squatting, trying to find some type of cover, whether it is a dead animal or whether it's just getting low to the ground. So supposedly they see this happening in the cemetery area, that the spirits of these soldiers are reenacting, rising and reenacting right where they were their last moments. And then the final story about this is there's been sightings of I mentioned Major Reno before, or he had his platoon or whatever. I don't know the size of it, but he had his group down by the river. And people have said that they have seen U.S. soldiers from Reno's patrol or platoon that was down by the river, that they see them pop up and appear in front of the river. And there's one of them that has red hair and a beard, and he'll appear as if he is getting water. He's getting water, and then he looks up. He'll notice you, and he'll stare, and then eventually he will fade. He'll just not an instant vanish, but like a fading away type of experience. So quite a lot of activity happening here, and all either around Custer and his men, and then even some Sioux spirits seen by the park ranger. So we have spirits from both sides, and again, it's a traumatic experience, a very terrible experience for anyone. And of course, their spirits would tend to hang around, I guess, and kind of get stuck where they are. So that's your story about Little Bighorn, the ghost of General Custer, and some men and some Sioux Indians. So there you have it. Those are your three ghost stories from Montana: Sacrifice Cliff, Montana Territorial Prison, and the battlefield of Little Bighorn. So I hope you enjoyed them. Those are your stories for this evening. Now let me see if there's anything in the chat that I need to respond to, because I want to respond if you're talking to me. As you know, I really don't pay that much attention while I'm telling the stories, but I want to make sure I'm here. If you have any questions for me or anything, you want to say anything to me, I'm here. Before I go on to the ghost pictures. Well, thank you, Gerard. I know this is probably old hat to you, because you've studied a lot of military history. So, but I'd love to go and visit there. I've never been there. It's definitely one of the places that I have on my list to go. I want to go there and experience it. I could just imagine just being on that hill, the eerie feeling there must be when, just to experience the wind blowing out there and seeing all of those markers. I would think it's quite an experience to be there. Mustang, yeah, I guess so. I mean, I love the ghost stories and the legends more so than actually going out and trying to experience paranormal activity. I like the stories of it. I find them fascinating. Thank you, Shannon. Shannon loves history. Great. I'm glad to see there's people out there that do. I remember a lot of people didn't really like it growing up. A lot of people, like kids in school, always thought it was boring. I never did. I always enjoyed it. And there's plenty more stories about Montana that I didn't get into. There's just too many of them to go into. Like I say, with any state, it's there's so many stories that go along with it. But I figured these are the ones. These are the interesting ones. So let's cover them. The Dover Demon. No, I am not Mustang. I've never heard that before. Lenny, stop moving around. What are you doing? Dover, New Jersey, Mustang. Like it's the local thing. The Dover Demon. I'll look into it definitely. I haven't heard that one. Always looking for a new legend and story to look at. Oh, Massachusetts. Okay. All right, maybe Massachusetts. Maybe I did hear about this. I just never heard. I just didn't recognize the demon part. I don't know. I'll definitely look into it and see what I can find. All right, so let's go into some paranormal video. I have one paranormal video and 2 pictures. Not a lot this week. So let me start with the pictures. Hold on here. Where is this? Here we go. Hold on. No, that's not it. That's not it. I always have a problem finding these things because I have so many windows open, It's tough. So many windows open. Hold on. Here we go. Okay, here's the first one. Hold on. Tell me what you think. This is taken inside a hospital. Let me put it on full screen. Now, this is just a hospital worker sitting at a table here. Someone was taking a picture of him. Look at this over here. This is said to be a spirit of a little girl that unfortunately passed away in the hospital. I don't know. I don't know what this could be. I don't know. Again, it's just a still shot, so we can't really analyze it much. But it does look kind of like a child wearing a dress. And the story is that there was nothing here. There was nothing here when the picture was being taken, and that this was seen after the fact. When they looked at the camera, they saw this. This is a doorway here. That there was no one else in the room, and just this person here doing what they're doing. So I don't know. It's creepy looking, at least I'll tell you that much. Yeah, this is a cell phone picture. I mean, this is not recent either. This is like flip phone. This is not high res. This is not a recent picture. This is a cell phone picture from, I don't know, the early 2000s. So there's no 4K here or anything like that. Might even have been a flip phone. I don't know. Tony says it could be an entity using the form of a child. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a child per se, but I don't know. Is it a spirit? Is my really question. Is it something paranormal? Is really my question. Yeah, I don't know. So, anyway, let's get rid of this. Wait, we don't want to do that. We just wanted to get rid of this. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next one. Next one is what here? Hold on. All right, this one really, I don't know. Hold on, I'll show you this one. This one's a little creepy from my perspective. Hold on. Again, it's in a hospital. don't know why. There just seems to be a lot of these hospital pictures. Here we go. Okay. Now, this is in the hallway of the hospital. Now, look over here. You can see the image, the translucent image here of what it looks like as a boy. Now, this is, let's see, it zooms in on it a little bit here. It's definitely a boy. This is definitely a boy. So the question is this a reflection? Right? That's really the question. Is this a reflection? I mean, because this is, if this isn't a reflection and it isn't a, a hoax, isn't superimposed, it's pretty darn creepy looking. Hold on here. Let me go back here. There we go. You can see the head, the eyes, everything there. The eyes, the head. This is definitely a boy. The arms, the hands, the feet. Looks like he's wearing shorts. No shirt. So I don't know. I do not know. Chris Strock, how are you, my friend? Good to see you. Yeah, skinny boy. Right. Cheech says it looks like an alien. Interesting. I guess you could say that. You could say it's an alien, right? Yeah, you could say that. It kind of looks like, a starved child, like from like Southeast Asia or Africa, where you see those poor children that are starving. That's what it kind of looks like the shaved head and, bones, skin and bones. So I don't know. Is this a reflection? I don't know what it is. Anyway, so that's your second one. I don't know what to say about that one. It could be a hoax. I don't know. I don't know about that one. Wasting away from food, right? Like I said, like something where Southeast Asia or Africa, where there's famines and the children are like skin and bones. It's just pretty disturbing. But that's what it looks like to me. All right. Delilah says it could be a reflection. Yeah, that's my question. Is it a reflection? Is it a double exposure? Something like that. Is it a reflection? Is there something where is the child like standing looking, off to the side? And then maybe that's as the person's taking the picture, the reflection just comes off of the wall. I don't know. It's hard to discern. It's hard to dispel. It's hard to disprove, debunk. I don't know. All right. Let's go on to our last one, which is an actual video. Hold on. All right, let's get the video. Where's the video here? Here we go. All right. Now, here we go. All right. Now, this was taken in Mexico. That a family was having a bonfire and they were playing music. And this is, I don't know if it's a grandfather with a baby or, some family member dancing around with the little child. Now watch what happens here. You see this dancing around near it? What is this? Just chilling. How are you, my friend? I don't know. What is this? What do you guys think? What is this? This mist thing dancing around near with them. I mean, I don't think it's a reflection. Like what could possibly be reflecting out in the dark like this? You know, I don't know what that is. He might be just chilling. It's from Mexico. I don't know. I don't know what he's doing, but it's some type of dance that it's from the video is from Mexico. So I don't know. I'll play it again for you, Tony. You said you didn't see it. Uh See, it comes in from the side, and then it's just like sticking with them. And it's not like a full body that you can see, it doesn't say, it's not like you see, okay, here's the legs, here are the heads, you can't really see that. Maybe there's an arm in there. I don't know. It's just bizarre. Like, I don't know what that is. The baby, I don't know if the baby's pointing to it. I don't know what that's, it looks like she's pointing at something. Maybe she's pointing at the dog because there's a dog down here, dog in this corner. But it starts out over here and then it comes right around. You feel like dancing, Tony? Wherever it was, it felt like, yeah, it felt like dancing. Yes, it felt like dancing, definitely. Yeah. It's creepy, it's really creepy because it's outside in the dark, so to speak. I don't know what could be possibly reflecting. So you take away reflection as an issue. I don't know what it would be. Yeah, I wouldn't want it either, Delilah. Is it like a demon or something? I don't know what it is. It's not like a clear body of a human. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But anyway, there you have it. Those are my three for this evening. Um, I think the last one was probably the creepiest. I the first one, it could be anything. I think it could be anyone. The boy one, I think that could be a reflection. That's probably more of a reflection than anything else, or double exposure or something like that. But that last one creeped me out. I don't know what that is. I wish I knew. I wish I could figure out what that was because it's bothering me that I can't figure it out. Arlene says maybe it's the child's mother. I don't know. I mean, why? I mean, I don't know. Um, I don't know. There's no background to this video. Like I can't, you know. The only thing that was with it was that they said that the family did not think this was a spirit of a loved one because they had not lost anyone that they could think of that would visit them. That was the first thought, is whether this was a spirit that was visiting them, like a family member, but and dancing, and engaging in the happiness, wanting to share the happiness. I don't, but they didn't have anything to add to it. So, and again, this is another thing where nothing is seen in real life. It's seen on the video afterwards. It's seen on the recording. It's not seen in their naked eye. So, they see obviously they're recording the grandfather and the child dancing. Obviously, I do the same thing if I was there. You want to save the memory, and then this shows up on it. So I don't know. It's unnerving. I would think to see something like that on your film would be unnerving. I don't know about that, Bobo. That's not smoke. It doesn't do that. Smoke doesn't go along with the person like that. Like that worked. That was the thing. The thing was like dancing around with it, with them. It wasn't. Smoke will go by. It'll go here. It'll go up. It'll go. It's not going to follow with you like that and move around. So I'm not going with smoke on that one. So anyway, there you go. There you have it. There's your ghostly pictures and videos for this evening, and your Montana ghost stories. So I hope you enjoyed them. Next week, I don't know. I got to think about next week, but the week after, the 14th, I'm going to do the St. Patrick's Day Irish ghost stories, which will be fun. Lenny will be in some type of attire, I'm sure, and Victor back there too. Victor's back there. You know, we'll be fully Irish garb for that. But until then, I will say, as always, thank you so much for joining and spending your Friday evening with me. And I will see you next time. We'll blow out our candles. And I'll say thank you for building the guild and see you next time. God bless everyone.